Mr. Carney goes to Washington again. But what will he be bringing home? This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
All the news you need to know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is again in the heart of power at Donald Trump's White House. It's the second time the Prime Minister has met with the American president in the Oval Office. Last time was back in May of this year. And not much has changed for the better from the Trump administration and its treatment of Canada. There are still tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, Canadian vehicles and parts, lumber and copper. Although most goods covered under CUSMA, the free trade deal, still cross the border tariff-free. In the lead-up to today's meeting, officials in Ottawa were downplaying the chances of a major breakthrough on a trade deal with the Trump administration. Mr. Carney arrived in Washington yesterday. That left it up to Liberal cabinet minister and Carney's top person on the trade file, Dominic LeBlanc, to handle the barbs thrown the Liberals' way by the leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre.
The Prime Minister promised that he was going to negotiate a win with the President, that he'd have a deal by July 21st. Here we are in October, and tomorrow the Prime Minister is going to the White House to announce this deal. Surely he's not just going for a photo op and to make more excuses. And the Prime Minister's office is already telling the media that there will be the full elimination of tariffs on steel and aluminum. Will he also confirm that this deal that he's announcing tomorrow, this win, will include elimination of tariffs on autos, softwood lumber, Buy America, and all other protectionism against Canada?
The Honourable Minister responsible for Canada-U.S. trade.
Mr. Speaker, I remember the Leader of the Opposition and some of his colleagues criticizing for the government for not having enough direct face-to-face engagement with the President of the United States. So good news, Mr. Speaker. The President has invited the Prime Minister to a working meeting tomorrow in Washington, followed by a working lunch. Obviously, Mr. Speaker, the conversation will center on trade issues and what we want to do to protect Canadian industries and Canadian workers, at the same time building an economy in North America that's in the interest of both countries. And the discussion will also talk about a series of other international issues.
Dominic LeBlanc is also now in Washington. So is the Industry Minister, Melanie Joly, and the Foreign Affairs Minister, Anita Anand. While this day unfolds in Washington, back in Canada, some Canadian premiers have been meeting with some U.S. governors. It was called the Great Lakes Leaders Summit, and the leaders included Ontario Premier Doug Ford and Quebec Premier François Legault, Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, and Governor Tony Evers of Wisconsin. At a news conference, Pennsylvania Governor Shapiro, a Democrat, said he's concerned about Trump's trade policies.
And instead of coming in and trying to bully the Prime Minister, actually sit down and work to hammer out a deal that lifts everyone up. This is not a zero-sum game. I don't believe that if a Canadian does well, a Pennsylvanian has to be worse off. I think there are ways that we can all be lifted up. We've shown that. To be fair, some of the trade deals 30 years ago did not benefit Pennsylvanians, and that's why it's important to negotiate new ones. But what is not helpful is the bullying. What is not helpful is failing to remember our shared history and the way we are intertwined. What is not helpful is the way in which the President has demeaned our neighbors in the North, suggesting that they should be the 51st state. I respect Canadian sovereignty.
And we now take you live to the Oval Office and remarks from U.S. President Donald Trump and Canada's Prime Minister, Mark Carney.
Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, who I have made very popular. He's an extremely popular Prime Minister, and I'm very honored to do it because I liked him right from the beginning. I've liked him, and we've had a good relationship. We have some natural conflict, but we will probably work that out. But we've had a very strong relationship, and your hosting of the various countries that showed up, that was a beautiful job you did, and I appreciate it very much. We're going to be talking about trade. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. We'll certainly be talking about Gaza. We're in very serious negotiations to I guess you could say, depending on the way you count, 3,000 years, you could say 500 years, you could say, but that it's been raging for a long time. And I think there's a possibility that we could have peace in the Middle East. It's something even beyond the Gaza situation. We want a release of the hostages immediately, etc. And so our team is over there now. Another team just left, and other countries, literally every country in the world has supported the plan.
Yep.
I don't think there's anybody that hasn't, actually, not that I've seen. But there's a real chance that we could do something, so you may have some questions on that later. But in the meantime, we'll spend some time and we'll make some deals and we'll do some things that are good for both of our countries. And Mark, it's an honor to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. If I may, you kindly hosted me and some of my colleagues a few months ago, and I said at the time, you are a transformative president. And since then, the transformation in the economy, unprecedented commitments of NATO partners to defense spending, peace from India, Pakistan through to Azerbaijan, Armenia, disabling Iran as a force of terror, and now, and I'm running out of time, but this is in many respects the most important.
The
what
merger
created,
of Canada
no,
and the
what
United
you
States.
have created, that wasn't where I was going. I would no, but on this solemn day of commemoration of the October horrific attacks of October 7th, for the first time in decades, hundreds of years, thousands of years, this prospect of peace that you've made possible. Canada stands foursquare behind those efforts, and we'll do whatever we can to support them.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Any questions?
What would it take for you to drop or lower your tariffs on Canadian sectors, including aluminum and steel?
Well, we're going to be talking about that with the Prime Minister. We'll be talking about tariffs. We'll be talking about a lot of that, but that's for a little bit later on.
Has the Prime Minister
I want to just acknowledge our great ambassador. Is he doing a good job?
He's doing a good job.
Otherwise, I'll get him out of this. So far.
Is it the White House's position that furloughed workers should be paid for their back pay?
Okay,
I would
so
say,
as the U.S. reporters start asking Trump about domestic U.S. politics, we will leave that. We will come back to it if there are some more remarks related to Prime Minister Carney's visit to the Oval Office. It started a little late, about 40 minutes late. They are supposed to take questions in the Oval Office for about 15 minutes or so and then move behind closed doors for what is being described as a working lunch. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
We are following a live news event as Prime Minister Mark Carney meets with U.S. President Donald Trump in the Oval Office. They have been talking about trade issues. Let's listen in.
In your opinion, why has Canada and the United States failed to reach an agreement up until now?
well, it's a complicated agreement, more complicated maybe than any other agreement we have on trade, because, you know, we have natural conflict. We also have mutual love. You know, we have great love for each other. I love this. I love Canada, the people of Canada, and Mark feels the same way about here. The problem we have is that they want a car company and I want a car company, meaning the U.S. wants a car company, and they want steel and we want steel. You know, so in other countries they're very far away, and there's no problem. You can compete and you can do. We don't like to compete because we sort of hurt each other when we compete, and so we have a natural conflict. It's a natural business conflict. Nothing wrong with it, and I think we've come a long way over the last few months, actually, in terms of that relationship. So when it comes to trade, the United States was always giving everything. They gave everything to Canada. They would, you know, let car companies leave here and go to Canada. But that hurts the United States. And, you know, other presidents didn't see that. They weren't business oriented. They might have been good politicians in some cases, not in all cases. They were bad at both. But it's a very natural conflict, and it's something that we're working on.
Canada's offered a lot of compromise this summer. Are you willing today to offer some compromise compromise to Canada, maybe on steel, and then we're done.
Well, we made compromise, and we've made some compromise even on steel. You know, we have the same basic authority and the same basic, this could be also a little bit of a conflict with other countries all over the world on steel, because we want to make our own steel. We don't want to bring steel in for the most part, but we will bring it in, and we do bring it in. We continue to bring it in from Canada, but there is a tariff to pay. And I think that would be a normal thing to say, but we've come a long way. I think, Howard, we can truly say, do you want to make a comment on that?
Well, I think the opportunity to work together, but as you've said, there's conflict. You know, why do we make cars in Canada? You've called that out, and you've addressed that. So there are places we should work together, and there are places that we have natural conflict.
It's a tough situation because we want to make our cars here. At the same time, we want Canada to do well making cars. So we're working on formulas, and I think we'll get there.
Canadians are refusing to go to the U.S. The numbers are down like 23% in the first 7 months of the year. What do you say to Canadians that don't want to go to the U.S. now because of your 51st state talk, because of the trade war, the tariffs, and the fear of also being detained at the border?
That, and Americans don't want to buy cars that are made in Canada. You know, I mean, we have the same conflict. So there isn't. It's something that will get worked out. There's still great love between the two countries, but you know, American people want product here. They want to make it here. Detroit was emptied out and moved to Canada, moved to Mexico, moved to other places, not just Canada. And now they're all moving back, you know, they're moving back. We have, right now, I was just telling Mark, we have 17 trillion, but it's really much higher. That was as of a couple of months ago. We have over $17 trillion being invested now in the United States. As an example, Biden, he was the worst president we've ever had, but they had less than $1 trillion in 4 years. We have more than 17 trillion in 8 months. 8 months. And I think that number is going to be $21, $22 trillion. There's never been anything like that in the history of the world for any country, not even close. You know, if you did 1 trillion in a year, that's pretty good. We're going to do over 20. And it's coming in with AI, it's coming in with auto plants. You know, we're building auto plants, a lot of auto plants in the U.S. It's coming in for a lot of reasons. It's coming in because of the fact, I think the November 5th election was a big factor, and I think the tariffs are a big factor. And again, we want Canada to do great, but you know, there's a point at which we also want the same business. We're competing for the same business. That's the problem. That's why I keep mentioning one way to solve that problem is a very easy way, but we're competing for the same business. He wants to make cars, we want to make cars, and we're in competition. And the advantage we have is we have this massive market. So it's it's quite an advantage.
Okay, we're going to leave that right now. We wanted to bring you that, the latest on Trump's view of trade. It's all the Prime Minister can do. Mark Carney did get a word in edgewise here. He hasn't said too much so far, other than some opening remarks. But we'll be right back to that, and we'll get some instant reaction as well. As Mark Carney meets Donald Trump at the Oval Office in Washington right now, here on News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Again, it's Prime Minister Mark Carney and U.S. President Donald Trump in the Oval Office right now. Just moments ago, Mr. Carney was asked about what he hopes to secure today. Let's listen here.
I'd like to know how come the UK and the European Union have succeeded to sign deals and bring the tariffs down, and Canada still hasn't been able to do the same?
Yeah, because they're not located right next to each other. It makes it, in many cases, it's much better and easier. But
yeah, and if I may, let's be clear about the relationship as it stands right now. We are the second largest trading partner of the United States. We do a lot of trade going across the border where we're cooperating, first thing. Secondly, we are the largest foreign investor in the United States. $500 billion in the last 5 years alone, probably $8 trillion in the next 5 years if we get the agreement that we expect to get. Thirdly, there are areas, as the President just said, where conflict, maybe not so much conflict, we compete. There are areas where we compete, and it's in those areas where we have to come to an agreement that works. But there are more areas where we are stronger together, and that's what we're focused on. And we're going to get the right deal for America, right deal, obviously, from my perspective, for Canada.
Okay. Prime Minister Mark Carney from the Oval Office just moments ago. Let's get some instant analysis now from Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. Would normally be joining us at this time of the week. The Prime Minister and the President of the United States eating into our time. I know you understand, Professor, but what do you think about what you've heard so far?
Actually, in a strange way, I thought it was extremely revealing of Trump, and he confirmed yet again what I've been saying for months now. And I think I'm probably, and I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back, I'm just simply saying I think I'm putting forward a very minoritarian view, which is not shared by Premier Ford or Prime Minister Carney or decision-making elites. He made it very clear. We want to make cars, and you want to make cars, but he basically said, we want the cars you're making. And I've been arguing for years the car industry that we make and have it moved to the States. If you look at all his speeches and you look at all his decisions on tariffs, I don't buy the 51st state. I don't buy the belief that he wants to buy our resources, but I don't believe he wants to invade us or acquire us. But he certainly is very crystal clear that he wants the manufacturing sector that we, to the extent we have one, it's diminished enormously from 1970 to now, down from a third of GDP down to 10%. But whatever we've got left, I think it's very clear from what his words were that he wants those cars that we make here and that manufacturing sector to move to the States.
Okay, let me ask you very quickly. Let me ask you very quickly, because we only have about a minute and a half here before we stop. Do you think there will be some kind of announcement today on lowered steel and aluminum tariffs?
Not from what he said today, not from what President Trump, in the words I heard from him, it does not sound like there's going to be a deal today. Plus, I've read the background stuff coming out of the White House and the other ministers, and it sounds like they want a permanent tariff because he said, we want to make steel. We want to make these industries, these products that you're making. And so he sees tariffs, he said so many times, sees tariffs as a way to bring companies back to the United States. One is automotive and another is steel. And that's what he wants to do. And that's what he's going to do.
Okay. What did you think of what Mark Carney had to say today?
You know, look, I am sympathetic to him because, again, I'm in a minority position. We don't have any leverage. I know it's very unfashionable to say that, and we're going to stand up and punch them in the face and retaliatory terrorists. We don't have leverage. We're the mouse, and they're the 10-ton elephant, and we've got to do the best we can to get a deal. And I just feel I really do have compassion for Mark Carney because he just doesn't have any leverage to retaliate or push back other than, invoke the fact that, we do invest a lot in the States and we are their second largest trading partner. That's all he can do. That's it.
Okay. All right. Thank you for being patient today, Professor Ian Lee, giving us your instant thoughts on what we just heard from the Oval Office. We'll be right back with continuing coverage of this story today on News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
The big story of the day is that the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, is in Washington, D.C., in the Oval Office, as a matter of fact, right now for a second Oval Office meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump. Mr. Trump is still holding court with the news media. Let's join this again live here on News Radio, and then we'll bring in our political panelists for some instant analysis. Let's listen to a little bit here.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's they're all Democrat delays. There are delays at the airport. That's standard. And again, this is something that every day we put forth a bill. It's just a continuation. It's a very simple thing to sign and very simple to do. And I really think that these are people that I think they have nothing to lose. They have a party that's out of control. They have no leader. Nobody knows who the leader is. I look at people with very low IQs like Crockett, this woman Crockett. I never met her, but she's a low IQ individual. I look at AOC talking about how if they want to negotiate, they can come to my office. She's not in that position to do that. And who the hell is she to say that? And then I watch Nancy Pelosi not knowing what to do. I watch their leadership. Look, Schumer, is petrified of primary because
So
he's not
he's
going to win
talking
probably.
about the U.S. government shutdown, which is now into its 7th day. This is normally how these things go. A foreign leader comes to the White House. There are questions about that specific file. Today, Canada-U.S. relationship. If it was another leader, it would be about the United States and its relationship with that country. But there's a lot happening, as you know, in U.S. domestic politics. The government shutdown, the issue with Trump sending National Guard troops to big American cities, Portland and Chicago, Trump's quest to bring peace to the Middle East. So he's taking questions on all of that today. Our focus, of course, is what the prime minister hopes to gain from this meeting today. After this Q&A session in the Oval Office, there's supposed to be a working lunch. Let's welcome Gary Keller, Vice President at Strategy Corp. Hi, Gary. Welcome back.
Great to be with you, Rob.
And Dennis Matthews, partner at Enterprise Canada. Welcome to you as well. Dennis, thanks for joining us today.
Great. Thanks for having me.
So based on what you have heard so far from both U.S. President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Mark Carney, Dennis, what's your immediate reaction to what you've heard so far? What is newsworthy out of this so far today?
Well, I'm not sure we know yet, and I think part of that is the challenge of what Trump has turned the Oval Office to. He's sort of made it a reality TV set where, these discussions are taking place. It's sort of entertainment, and it's these kind of, these clips and moments, whether it's the pat on the back, a hand wave, an oddball question that sort of defines and dominates the day. But, these are two men who obviously are getting along better than him and Trudeau did, but I haven't seen a big formal announcement, and I'm not sure we're there yet, which is a big problem for Carney back home.
Okay, what do you think, Gary, based on what's been said so far?
Well, as Dennis puts it as well, part of the challenge for Mark Carney is surviving this initial public part of the meeting. That it's like walking into the Thunderdome, and we know other foreign leaders have walked in there and come out fairly harmed by that encounter.
Fairly bruised. So, yes.
Yeah, fairly bruised. So step one is getting out of that sort of 30-minute spray with little bruising, and to be fair, the president has been singing Mark Carney's praises. He said that he's made Mark Carney famous and popular. I'm not sure that's what Mark Carney wants, but already just taking a look from the news feeds, briefly, Trump has talked about autos and auto tariffs, saying we compete, but there's a big market out there. We want Canada to do great. We're competing for the same business. There's been some talk of steel and aluminum tariffs briefly again off the top. And of course, there was a reference to making Canada the 51st state, and Carney's tried to laugh it off. And I'm not sure that's going to be a winner with the elbows up crowd. But, when you're Mark Carney, you're sitting in the Thunderdome, I'm not sure you can do more than that.
Okay. I mean, it's been telegraphed. We're not expecting a big breakthrough. The big hope is for some tariff relief for steel and aluminum. Let me ask you this. How important is it for Prime Minister Carney to have something to announce today? I mean, anything to announce today, what you would call in politics a deliverable. You have to deliver something. What do you think, Dennis?
Yeah, I think that the risks here are growing for Carney by the day around delivering things. And it's obviously a flashpoint here on the Canada-U.S. relationship and getting a deal, but it's sort of becoming more broadly true across the board for him. This is somebody who burst onto the scene with this resume that got people's attention. There's, I think, a lot of patience amongst Canadians in the early sort of days, weeks, and months of his administration. But, now we're starting to get into the thick of it, and we're out of the early honeymoon stage and into, what are you actually doing and what are you actually accomplishing? And when you look at the other countries and blocs, including, Europe, that have found ways to get deals, I think you're starting to see domestically this goes from, yes, Trump's great to deal with, but, you promised there would be a path forward. And so finding something that's easy to communicate, I don't know that there needs to be a big final deal here, but having something more than just a sort of a laundry list of vague intentions is, I think it's mission number one for Carney at the moment.
Okay. What do you think, Gary?
Yeah, I don't think, and to your point, the government was telegraphing early on saying to expect a full deal would be not something to expect here. And Mr. Carney has benefited from a honeymoon period, if you will. He's also benefited, I think, from Canadians who understand that dealing with Donald Trump is a lot like trying to nail Jello to the wall, right? Depending on the day, depending on his mood, et cetera. And so I think he's benefited from that. But yes, he has to come out with something and something substantial. To Dennis's point, you need a deliverable to say, we trusted you. Canadians said we trusted you, and you're actually delivering. He's heading into a budget, and the honeymoon could be coming to an end shortly.
All right, be right back. Just getting started with our Newsday panelists, getting some instant analysis on Prime Minister Carney's meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump. The Oval Office part of it is just wrapped up, and the barrage of questions from the news media. And now they'll have a quote-unquote working lunch. Maybe something comes out of that, maybe not. We'll have to wait and see what the day brings. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
With Prime Minister Carney in Washington for an Oval Office and White House meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump, we've been getting some analysis from Gary Keller, as Vice President of Strategy Corps, and Dennis Matthews, partner at Enterprise Canada. Let me ask you, before we listen to one of the highlights from Mr. Carney today. Dennis, when Donald Trump praises Mark Carney and talks about what a great relationship he has with Mark Carney, and when Mark Carney more or less flatters Donald Trump and calls him a transformative president and speaks about how he's transforming the economy and gives his plan for Middle East peace high praise and talks about his leadership in NATO, does this damage Mark Carney at all, do you think? To appear to have this at least cordial relationship, if you will, with President Trump? What do you think, Dennis?
It's something that, it's fascinating because there's a whole cohort of the electorate that elected Mark Carney on this sort of elbows up. He's going to fight for Canada and stand up to Trump. And the Liberal campaign was built around that as sort of its core operating principle. And, here we are, fast forward into fall of 2025. And, he's sort of right up there with all of the tech CEOs and world leaders who have come to the Oval Office, into that reality TV set, and put their lips in certain places. And it's really kind of remarkable to watch. But what it hasn't, as of yet, sort of repulsed that key element of the electorate. And it's really a question for the pollsters to dig into, because it sort of defies logic. But, he's joined a long cast of people who've gone down this path.
What do you think, Gary?
Yeah, the obsequiousness is a bit nauseating, frankly, and the hypocrisy from the Canada Strong elbows up crowd is something to unpack. But I think Dennis is actually onto something. I'd love to see some polling out there which unpacks this a bit and says to Canadians, when Mark Carney goes and says these things about Donald Trump, do you think he's doing it because he actually believes it, or is this a negotiating tactic, or what the case may be? And there may be a part of the population which says to themselves, oh, he's just saying that so that he can try to get a deal. And that might, be selling it to themselves, of that part of the electorate who was very strongly elbows up. There's a little bit of, for the Conservatives and the Conservative leader, a little bit of a heads I win, tails you lose approach there when it comes to dealing with these voters. But it's a little bit nauseating to see. And I got to think some of those voters feel that way as well.
Okay. One of the news reporters that was in there, Canadian news reporter, wanted to know, what is it with Prime Minister Carney? Why haven't you been able to get a deal with the United States when all of these other countries have been able to get a deal with the United States, Japan and the UK, for example? Let's listen to a little bit of that.
How come the UK and the European Union have succeeded to sign deals and bring the tariffs down, and Canada still hasn't been able to do the same?
Yeah, because they're not located right next to each other. It makes it, in many cases, it's much better and easier. But
and if I may, let's be clear about the relationship as it stands right now. We are the second largest trading partner of the United States. We do a lot of trade going across the border where we're cooperating, first thing. Secondly, we are the largest foreign investor in the United States. $500 billion in the last 5 years alone, probably $8 trillion in the next 5 years if we get the agreement that we expect to get. Thirdly, there are areas, as the President just said, where conflict, maybe not so much conflict, we compete. There are areas where we compete, and it's in those areas where we have to come to an agreement that works. But there are more areas where we are stronger together, and that's what we're focused on. And we're going to get the right deal for America, right deal, obviously, from my perspective, for Canada.
I found that interesting, the agreement we expect to get. I don't know what agreement that is, whether that's a tariff relief agreement or a broader type agreement, a new CUSMA along with security. I'm not sure what he's talking about and what will be announced today. But what did you think about that answer from the Prime Minister, Gary Keller?
Yeah, I picked up on that too. The deal that we expect to get. So maybe there's a little bit of pre-positioning there. Things may be going better than expected. I don't know. It's a little hard to unpack. And in some ways, Donald Trump is correct in that because our economies are, we're next to each other. Economies, a lot of ways, are intertwined. It is more complicated to negotiate some of these things because, as we all know, over the last number of months, the different tariff rates, the different industries that are affected, impacted, what have you, it's a little hard to unravel some of this stuff. So in some ways, the president is right. And look, I think we all, as Canadians, want to see a prime minister succeed. But the proof will be in the details. And I did pick up on that language as well.
Yeah. Okay, Dennis, what do you think?
Well, Rob, I think it comes back to your earlier point around the pressure to announce something back home. And, if you take a look at that clip, I mean, there's some pleasantries back and forth and obviously some shared understanding. But, if he comes back from Washington without anything announced, without a clear takeaway, I think you're going to start to see, the opposition party sort of filling that vacuum. You're going to start to see the critics filling that vacuum. It's sort of communications 101 to be able to own your narrative. And right now he's really in this process world of, we're talking, it's not easy, there's something to come, but, getting to a point where he actually has something concrete to say, pressure is going to build on that. Is it going to overflow tomorrow? Not clear, but pressure will build as the time marches on here.
When we come back, we'll talk about a domestic issue in Canada. Budgets, the November 4th budget. And maybe it'll be a November budget every year thereafter. And it'll be a different kind of budget. It'll really be two budgets. There'll be an operational budget and a capital budget. But do Canadians care? Or is this a total inside the Ottawa bubble story? When we come back to our Newsday panel on News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
Well, it's our Tuesday Newsday political panel. Trump and Carney have dominated, but there is other political news to talk about with Gary Keller from Strategy Corp and Dennis Matthews, a partner at Enterprise Canada. Dennis, what do you think? First of all, the government's moving the federal budget to the fall, it says, for good. And there will be two budgets. There will be an operational budget and a capital budget. What do you think about that, first of all, very quickly?
Well, first, this is classic sort of inside Ottawa. I think it's going to be interesting to budget wonks, to premiers, to the kind of people who are looking for different funding and budget cycles. But I think what it is it's masking the real reality out there, which is our government is spending a heck of a lot more than it's bringing in. And we've been on an unsustainable path for most of the Trudeau era. We're continuing on that now. And this is a bill that future generations are going to have to pay. I'm not sure if 20 years from now, people are going to look back and worry whether it was capital or operational expenses. They're going to look back and say, wow, we took on a ton of debt for things that I don't benefit from today. It's really, it's a travesty.
Okay. This idea, I'm interested. I'm interested in, the budget being moved to the fall from the spring, and now instead of the fall economic update, it'll be the spring economic update, and there's going to be an operational budget and a capital. I'm interested in all of that stuff, but I could be a wonk on that kind of stuff. I just wonder if Canadians really care, or whether this is once like if you get south of the Queensway in Ottawa, whether people really care. What do you think, Gary?
Yeah, I don't think people will care too much about the date of the budget, whether it's spring or fall. To Dennis's point, there's a lot of budget wonks that, and there are people who it matters to, but those aren't the sort of everyday listeners who are impacted by that. What is interesting is this budget split into an operational and a capital plan. And your Alberta listeners and your Calgary listeners may remember that in 2013, former Alberta Premier Alison Redford tried this. And at the time, they used the same language that Minister François-Philippe Champagne is using, that Alison Redford and her Finance Minister Doug Horner used, that this is going to give Albertans a clearer perspective on how their tax dollars were being spent. While fast forward, the Auditor General said, sorry, this made things way more opaque, more difficult to explain and understand, way more complicated. And an economist, Trevor Tombe, who actually sits on the Alberta Next panel with Danielle Smith, said that Alberta's experiment was a quote-unquote a disaster, and it made it difficult to get a full financial picture. He even said that other economists like him and others had to add up some of the numbers on their own to get a full transparent view of things, and it wasn't what the government is saying. So I think there's a lot of shell game here going on. The question is, can the Conservatives, who are trying to make this an issue that Canadians care about, and that is really an uphill battle. But like I said, we've had some previous experience here, and it hasn't been a raging success.
Okay. I will just break a little bit of news. We don't have time to get a comment from you, which is unfortunate. Gosh, I could have used 3 more minutes today. Tamara Leach and Chris Barber, the two quote-unquote leaders of the Freedom Convoy, organizers, conditional sentences for both of them. Almost 4 years after they were charged. Conditional sentences. The Crown, you will remember, had been seeking 8 years and 7-year prison terms, but no prison time for either of them. Thank you to both of you.
The right call.
Great to hear from you today. Gary Keller, Vice President, Strategy Corps. Dennis Matthews, partner at Enterprise Canada. And Talkback is next.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. Today's topic, Trump and Carney in Canada. Because the biggest story in the country today is the Prime Minister's visit to Washington and his meeting with the U.S. President, his second such meeting since May, earlier this year. So we have some questions for you, just to get that conversation going at 1-833-668-2577. Here's a question for you. As a Canadian, what is your opinion these days of Donald Trump? What is your opinion these days of Donald Trump as a Canadian? When you see him on television, when you see him on the news, when you hear him speak, when you think about his time as President of the United States, what's your honest opinion of the man? Can't stand him? Think he's a bully? You think he's a liar? A crook? Worse? Authoritarian dictator? We hear all of these descriptions about Donald Trump, or do you have a different opinion? Strong leader? Someone who doesn't beat around the bush? Someone who tells it like it is? We've heard this too. Someone who stands up to the elites in Washington, the elites in the media. A patriot. Someone who puts his country first. What is your opinion of Donald Trump? The good, the bad, the really bad, whatever. Because this is such a big news story today. Not every day the Canadian Prime Minister sits in the Oval Office and is seated right next to the U.S. President. So we wanted to start with that question. What is your honest opinion of Donald Trump? When do you see the guy's face? When you hear the guy speak? What's your reaction? How does it make you feel? Honest opinion. That's just one angle, though, that we want to explore on Talkback with your help today at 1-833-668-2577. And then there's Mark Carney. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. Here's a question about Mark Carney. Mark Carney led the Liberals to a big win in the most recent election, largely because Canadians trusted him to be the person most able to deal with Donald Trump. But after all of these months, we don't know what today brings. We'll have to wait and see. But as of now, there's still no deal with Donald Trump on trade or security or any of it. And there are tariffs on a wide range of important Canadian businesses. But here's a question. How much of that is Mark Carney's fault? How much do you blame Mark Carney for not being able to achieve a breakthrough on a deal with Donald Trump? It's been all over the news media. The pressure is on Mark Carney to start showing some results. Not much in the way of results yet on a deal with Trump, but how much of that is on Mark Carney? A lot? A little? None at all? Give us a better sense of how you feel about that at 1-833-668-2577. Because it was Mark Carney who said, we'll have a deal within 30 days. He said that in Kananaskis at the G7 summit back in June. We'll have a deal in 30 days. Never happened. Never came to pass. But do you hold Mark Carney responsible for that? Or do you think that's more because of who he's dealing with on the other side with Donald Trump? What do you think? And then we want to ask you a little bit more about how you view the United States and how you view Americans these days as Canadians. For example, there was a survey that was published a few weeks ago that said most Canadians will, quote, never trust Americans the same way again. Never trust Americans the same way again. Do you count yourself among them? You will never trust Americans the same way again. There was another survey that said their trust in Americans has been permanently broken because of the trade dispute, because of all the talk about making Canada the 51st state. That came up again today. Trust in Americans has been permanently broken. Is that how you feel? Do you feel differently? Yet another survey. These are all from highly respected public opinion firms. All of these surveys. Another one said, most Canadians now view the United States as the top threat to Canada. Used to be China, now it's the United States. The top threat to Canada. Is that how you view the United States? As the top threat to Canada? In addition to all of that, there's clear data that shows the number of Canadians traveling to the United States has plummeted. Canadians traveling to the United States by air, that's way down. Vehicle trips to the United States, that's way down as well. Tourism operators in the United States, business is way down. We miss the Canadians and their money. And what about your purchases? There have been all kinds of news stories this year about Canadians shunning American-made products in favor of Canadian-made products or products that are made or grown in other countries other than the United States. Are you doing that? Did you ever do that? Avoiding American-made products when you go shopping? We've talked about some of this before. We want to jump back into it again with you today. We can only do that, though, if you join our discussion. We'd love to hear from you. What's your honest opinion of Donald Trump? What's your honest opinion of the United States and Americans? Has that changed? And there hasn't been much progress from Prime Minister Carney and his dealings with Donald Trump. How do you view that? Is that a failure on the part of Prime Minister Carney? Did he overpromise, underdeliver? Or are you willing to give the Prime Minister a break or a pass because of who he's dealing with, Donald Trump? And Donald Trump can be difficult to deal with. The Canada-U.S. relationship, Donald Trump, Mark Carney, our topic for Talkback today. Once again, the call-in line, 1-833-668-2577. If you have never called before, just mention that. It will make you a priority today. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback on News Radio.
something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Given the big news story of the day is Carney and Trump meeting in the Oval Office in Washington. We want your honest opinion of Donald Trump as a Canadian. What's your honest opinion of the United States and Americans as a Canadian? Has that changed? And still no big deal, no big breakthrough on a deal between Prime Minister Carney and Donald Trump. Do you view that as a failure of leadership by Prime Minister Carney, or do you give Prime Minister Carney a pass because he's dealing with Donald Trump? Let's get into it today on Talkback. Joe's up first in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Rob. How are you?
Yeah, very good, Joe. Your honest opinion of Donald Trump, what is it?
I don't give any other kind of opinion, and I'm not a Mark Carney fan. I never was, and I probably never will be. But then again, he's a politician, so I think Mark Carney is doing the only thing he can do, and that's kiss Donald Trump's ass. That's all you can do with a narcissistic bully. What else do you do? And it's not really a discussion or a debate. That's exactly what this guy is, and I frankly think he's mentally deficient or socially deficient anyway. And so Mark is probably doing the only thing he can do, because anything else will exacerbate an already dangerous situation. And I think if Pierre Poilievre were in there, he'd shrink like a mouse in the presence of an elephant. He's big talk. So that's how Carney got in. And what else can the guy do? That's it. A narcissistic bully.
Okay. What's your honest opinion of the United States and Americans these days? And Americans, has that changed?
Not a good question to ask me, Rob. I am an American.
Okay.
I'm a Canadian and an American. I think the question, and anyone that answers that question is talking through their rear end, because there's 300 and some odd million Americans, and nobody knows more than a few. So you can't judge the whole country based on being an American. What I question is the intelligent quotient of the people that actually voted this moron in. I really do.
Okay. How do you view the lack of a big deal with Trump by Prime Minister Carney?
What do you mean the lack of? What do you mean?
He said we would have a comprehensive deal with the United States within 30 days. It's been 6 months. There's no deal. How do you view that?
Well, the same way I view Trump's statement that he was going to end the war with Ukraine in a week. It's BS. But they're politicians, Rob. They're politicians.
Okay, so just a BSing politician. Okay, thank you. You've got us off to a good start. Thank you, Joe. A narcissistic bully is how Joe describes Donald Trump. Abe in Champion, Alberta. Abe, you're up next.
Hi there.
What's your opinion of Donald Trump? What's your opinion of Donald Trump, sir?
Can I be crude?
Well,
he's an a-hole.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that.
Secondly, I think Donald Trump right now, the majority of Americans and how they see America. America really never has been for free trade. They're just protectionists. They always have been. Whereas Canada, we're a mixture of what we want, free trade and protectionism. For example, BC and Alberta, they're not, BC and Quebec, they're nothing but a hotbed of protectionists and socialists, and then there's parts outside of Toronto, and the rest of Ontario is mostly free enterprise, and so is Saskatchewan and Alberta, so we all want different things. But one thing's for sure, we're more free enterprise and for free trade than the Americans are. I don't know how we're going to square the thing up. I mean, the Americans make good arguments. They say we're protectionists. We can't even get free trade going between the provinces. How the heck are we going to get, and then on the other hand, this is just a mess. I don't trust Pierre at all, the Conservatives. I don't know if he's a free trader or what he is. I feel confident that the Prime Minister is a free trader, but he also is somebody that believes in spending public money, no matter how much he spends, just to subsidize this and subsidize that. And You know, and the whole thing is
So if I could ask you then, the prime minister said he would be able to get a deal with Donald Trump, and there's no deal. How do you view that?
I agree with what the first caller said, and in fact, I agree with everything the first caller said. It's just politicals BSing, and we do that all the time. And I come to accept that from politicians. And and I don't think Donald Trump, even though he's what I called him, it reflects most Americans. Most Americans are pretty rational people, I think. But they think the way they are. They're just the biggest bully on the block, and they want things their way. They can get things their way.
Okay. Do you do you have a lesser opinion of Americans than you used to because of everything that's happened?
You gotta be kidding. I don't. When Esso said they were pulling out Imperial Oil, their headquarters from Calgary, get the hell out and leave your leases behind. Is my feeling. That's just part of America retracting, going back into America and spending money in America. There's no rationale given for that. There wasn't anybody in the company in Calgary. Over 900 employees had a clue that something like this was even needed, for God's sakes. They just don't give a damn. Americans don't give a damn about anybody but themselves.
Okay. Have you always had that opinion? That's not a new opinion, Abe. You've always felt that way? You've always felt that way. Okay.
No, but not always felt that way. It's only the last few years that I've realized how undependable they are as a trade partner is, what kind of a bully they are. And I'm just so totally disappointed. And yet, like in Calgary, Calgary got all these wonderful guys that are playing for the Calgary Flames. They're Americans, and I hear them talk. That's what I expect out of Americans. Fair-minded, reasonable people. I don't know where this is coming from the States, but it sure isn't healthy.
Okay, got to run. Thank you. Off and running today on Talkback. 2 lines available there. Trump, Carney, and Canada. That's what we're talking about today. Join the discussion on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We are seeking out opinions today of Donald Trump, the United States, Americans, and Prime Minister Carney's lack of a big deal with Donald Trump, and whether that's a failure on the part of the Prime Minister, or do you give him a pass, if you will, or some grace because he is dealing with Donald Trump? Joe in Calgary is up next. Hi, Joe.
Hey, how you doing?
Very good, Joe. What's your opinion of Donald Trump?
My opinion of Donald Trump, while I don't like the buffoonery, I think he's the right person in the right place at the right time. If he can get that country's finances on track and run a surplus, he's doing a good job. As far as Canada goes, we elected a government over 10 years ago that made us vulnerable. We're vulnerable to the whims of the Americans. We got nothing. We elected Carney, who advised Trudeau on economic policy. I can't see us getting anything different.
Okay, how do you view Prime Minister Carney's lack of a new deal with Donald Trump? Is that a failure, or do you give him a pass because it's been 6 months, it's Donald Trump? Just what's your take on that?
My take on it is he's got no leverage. Like, the Americans don't need a deal with Canada. So I give him a pass because nobody's going to get a deal. I think he just has to work with Donald Trump and find out what we can do for them and sell them that, and then get Canadian infrastructure going.
Okay. There seems to be some public opinion research that shows Canadians now have a different view of Americans, just generally speaking, the people of America. Has your opinion of Americans changed at all?
No, I love the American people. All my experiences from working down there, traveling down there, have been so positive.
All right, Joe, thank you very much. To Brackish up next on Talkback. Hello, Brackish.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hi, Brackish. What's your opinion of Donald Trump?
Okay. Yeah, no doubt he's very challenging as well as unique at the same time.
Okay.
Could he be the mirror of the society that has elected him to lead for another 4 more years? consciousness, saying out loudly what is or what was said or done in a hush-hush way previously.
Okay. What is your opinion of America? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not sure if that's your phone is breaking up or not, but what is your view of Americans? Has that changed the American people? Has your view of Americans changed?
No, the people are always, the people-to-people contact is unique and it stays solid. It's at the government of the day that gives a different impression. But the laypersons, they still have a good working relationship.
Okay. And how do you view the Prime Minister's lack of a breakthrough on a deal with Donald Trump? Is that a failure on the Prime Minister's part?
Is the solution, the major solution that could help Canadians is that get a pipeline to the coast. If that is solved, all Canadian issues will disappear. We need to get to our markets ourselves.
Okay, Brackish, thank you for your call today on Talkback and having your say. We'll bring you up to date. It's a very busy news day. There's a lot happening that we need to tell you about, and then we'll get right back. We'll be taking your calls on one of the big stories today, and that's Prime Minister Carney in Washington meeting with President Trump, looking for a deal. Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What's your opinion of Donald Trump? What's your opinion of the United States and Americans? And of Prime Minister Mark Carney and his dealings with Donald Trump and the lack of a breakthrough on a deal. How do you view that? That's what we're asking today on Talkback. Dave is in Halifax, is up next. Hi, Dave.
Hello. Thanks for taking my call, Rob.
You're welcome, Dave.
I think with Trump, I think a lot of people are suffering from TDS, that's for sure, because they can't stand the man. And they're probably the ones that can't wait to hear him in the morning. I have folks that they can't wait to see what his next move is going to be. He's almost like an entertainer to a certain degree, and he draws you in. And that's his gift in some ways. I mean, you can see him at the White House. It's a carnival, and people get on there. You look at the reporters. It's like a feast, and he dodges around certain questions, and he'll answer things that have nothing to do with, say, Carney or the trade negotiations. So, in my opinion, I think he's doing some very good things. I think you're going to get resistance if you're going to make large decisions, and change sometimes. People aren't into change, and we're frightened of change. And I think we require a shift in certain things on this planet right now, and perhaps he's leading the way. I'm not saying right or wrong, but I do approve of some of his decisions. Carney, I think we got snafu'd with him. He's had 6 months, and unless he gets something today, perhaps, I think we got ripped. And I think we fell for him. And I think, we have to remember, I think we're very frustrated the way our country's gone over the last 10 years under Trudeau. And we've gotten nowhere. In fact, we've lost ground. And Carney, I'd have to discuss this because I think your last caller basically said what I think. And he worked with Trudeau. And I don't think we're going to see a deal. Elbows up. Really? What have we seen? We've seen nothing, and I think we're losing some, patience toward that. American people, I love them. I have American relatives who are also very democratic. They're from Connecticut. They came up and visited me, and I felt very awkward. I felt almost apologetic the way we have treated them in some ways. In the fact, and they have nothing to do with anything. They're caught in the crossfire. So to take a hate on for Americans, and many people have never been down there, and yet they hate Americans, right? So you have to get down there, intermingle with people, and no, I've been treated royally down there when I go, and I wouldn't hesitate, except the dollar really does suck right now. So I think
all right.
For me to travel down there, yeah. And did you get pretty well what the information you want, Rob?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much. Yeah, as for the opinion on the Americans, and I thank you for your call, Dave, in Halifax. just bringing that up because of two recent surveys. One that said most Canadians will never trust Americans the same way again. Most Canadians will never trust Americans the same way again. And another one that said their trust in Americans has been permanently broken. Permanently broken because of the trade dispute and the talk from Trump about the 51st state. On Americans, that's their Canadians' view of Americans, according to some surveys. Herman is in Calgary and up next on Talkback. Hi, Herman.
Thank you for taking my call.
You're
Let's
welcome,
start
Herman.
with Mr. Carney. Let's start with Mr. Carney first.
Sure.
I mean, when it comes to Mr. Carney, he wants a big deal with the United States. Why doesn't he go and get the big deal right in front of him at home? I mean, I feel for the guy. 10 years of Trudeau government has left us completely unprepared to deal with the juggernaut that is Donald Trump. But we had this in preview with the first 4 years. So I think that there's a lot of people out there that basically didn't pay attention to the first 4 years, and now we are where we are. I wish him well today. I really do, because I think the country could use a little bit of a boost.
When you say what's the deal right in front of him, what is that deal that you're speaking of, sir?
Well, we can talk about the economics, but that's a pipeline to the coast.
A pipeline. Okay, fair enough.
That is the most efficient capital in Canada, the most efficient industry in Canada, and that's going to have the biggest bang on the bottom line for gross domestic product. What else would you be thinking of? Why are you playing around with? I kind of know the politics, but that is really where this boils down to.
Okay.
And the fact that you actually have a national unity overtones to all of this, and that's frightening off even more capital. We're all for one and one for all in Canada, or we're not, in which case then there's going to have to be very tough questions made, and he's delaying it, so those questions are being louder and louder and louder as time goes on.
Okay. Has your view of the American people changed at all?
I don't think it's really changed at all. I appreciate that they've had shifting priorities. I have Democratic relatives, again, in Connecticut, kind of amusing from the last caller, also on the West Coast, that are much more Republican. Look, let's take a Democratic town like Chicago. Their interest and focus has shifted. You can't have 6 to 12 murders every single weekend on the street and not be attracted to a gentleman that says, I'm going to put the National Guard and that's going to free up police and to make you safer.
Okay.
I think that there's a lot of people. I think there's a lot of people that are just not reading in the real existential crisis some Americans are feeling right now in terms of public safety and everything else like that.
All right. Thank you for your opinion. Herman in Calgary. We'll stop here and be right back. Won't be long. And more of your calls talking about Trump and Carney and Canada on Talkback today on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Trump, Carney, Canada, talking about all of it today. And Americans with Keith in Nova Scotia up next on Talkback. Hello, Keith.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you just fine. What's your opinion of Donald Trump?
Well, I guess I'm going to say it's like you have Donald Trump and Mark Carney in a car. Donald Trump is in the driver's seat, and looks like Carney's might be sitting in the baby seat in the back. Trump knows that he can basically do whatever he wants with us. I think Carney has got to handle him with kid gloves. Anything he says that Trump doesn't want to hear, going to set him off, then I think he will punish us more, because I think his nature is just to be can be vindictive.
Okay, so for example, that's a good place to interrupt right there, Keith, if you'll just hang on.
Sure.
Curtis, call up from today's Oval Office meeting, Mr. Carney's opening remarks, where he kind of flatters Donald Trump, or praises in many respects Donald Trump, talking about his plan for the peace in the Middle East and his leadership of NATO, for example. Let's listen to a little bit of that.
You kindly hosted me and some of my colleagues a few months ago, and I said at the time, you are a transformative president. And since then, the transformation in the economy, unprecedented commitments of NATO partners to defense spending, peace from India, Pakistan through to Azerbaijan, Armenia, disabling Iran as a force of terror, and now, and I'm running out of time, but this is in many respects the most important.
The
what
merger
you created
of Canada
no,
and the
what
United
you have
States.
created. That wasn't where I was going.
The merger of Canada and the United States, he said at the end there. But he's kind of flattering him, is he not? Is that how you would? Is that what you hear there, Keith?
Well, I can say about that comment, and I did listen to that press conference that seemed to be mostly dominated by Donald Trump. He did say the merger of Canada, and he had that grin on his face. He was laughing. He's not kidding.
Okay.
He would love
right.
that.
Okay.
And flattery? Of course, Mark Carney is going to say nice things about Donald because Donald Trump likes that. He likes to be flattered. And I think as for, my opinion of Donald Trump is honestly he's managed to con the United States twice into getting elected.
Okay,
and,
okay. Let me ask you, because I have a few more questions and lots of calls to get to. There's been no big deal between Prime Minister Carney and Donald Trump on trade, on security, yet. The day's not over. Who knows? But not yet. How do you view that? Is it failing by Prime Minister Carney, or do you give him a pass, or what?
Well, it's too early to tell. I just think that anything that Donald Trump doesn't like, he's going to punish us more. Yeah.
Okay.
He's not going to bend over to Mark Carney.
Gotcha. Okay.
And,
gotcha,
Carney,
Keith. I'm just going to move along. Keith, going to move along. Gotta end our conversation there and go to Sean. Up next, calling from Calgary today. Sean. Hi there, Sean.
Hi, I'm actually calling from
Sean
Cambridge.
in Cambridge. Sorry. Yeah, Sean in Cambridge. Go ahead, Sean. My apologies.
Wow, Maple MAGA certainly out today. I'd like to have the Kool-Aid concession for these listeners. Anyway, yeah,
opinion has been all over the place today. Opinion has been all over the place today on Mr. Trump.
Yeah, he's. I don't know where they're getting these flowery views of Donald Trump from. According to Moody's, are you familiar with Moody's?
Yeah, Moody's is a ratings agency. Yeah.
Yeah, they're saying that the U.S. is facing economic weaknesses and job losses, which are likely to persist. They say they're not currently in a recession, but they're heading in that direction. They're saying many of Trump's tariffs are likely to backfire. Like New York and California struggle, which are big states, are struggling to maintain their stability. His tariffs are damaging their economy. People are losing their jobs. He's taking away people's medical benefits. He's sending the National Guard into troops he's sending National Guard troops into cities because apparently he's unfamiliar with posse comitatus. He's using his power to shut down critics. He wants to send troops into Portland, Oregon, and people in Portland are going like, "There's nothing going on here. Why are you sending troops in?" Because apparently he saw something on TV, probably Fox, that said it's dangerous in Portland. There's nothing going on in Portland. Like you said, when you cross the border, you turn your watch back to 1936. And if you speak to German people, they say, yeah, this looks very similar to the 1930s in Germany. It's very scary times. It's not good.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Has your opinion of Americans, the American people, changed at all?
Well, 77 million of them voted for this moron. So what do you think?
So is that a yes? It's changed? You have a different view of Americans now? It has changed. What do you think about the lack of a deal from Prime Minister Carney with Donald Trump?
He's dealing with a toddler. It doesn't really matter. Even if he does get a deal, who's to say that Donald Trump wouldn't look at his cornflakes with crossed eyes next week and cancel the whole thing over national security? I think it's irrelevant. You can't trust the man.
Okay. Thank you, Sean in Cambridge. I'm glad we could fit you in. No, I let you have your opinion. You've been very blunt, as you usually are. Thank you. Be right back with more of your opinions on today's topic on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yeah, today we want to know your opinions of Donald Trump, Americans, and Prime Minister Carney for not getting a deal done with Donald Trump. In Cambridge, Rob is up next. Hi, Rob.
Hi, good afternoon, Rob.
Yeah, very
How you
good.
doing?
What's your opinion of Donald Trump?
Okay, here's something going to be different. I don't really, you know what? I just learned something a few weeks ago about how to view these politicians, and the worst thing you do is really bash the person, but you can always put down their policies. And their policies, his policies, will self-destruct. And it's been done before in previous history. And he's taken it down, and you know what? He's trying everything, and I believe he's getting lots of advice from bad people that he thinks are good. And it's true. If there's something of his policy he doesn't like, that someone doesn't like, he doesn't want to hear it. You know, and I can see that. Now, with Prime Minister Carney not getting a deal, it's not done yet. And he even came right out and said at first, at first he said, I'll have one in 30 days, nothing. But then when he saw it was difficult, he did say, I'm not going to be on TV talking about it, and I'm in no rush just to get any deal. I want to get a good deal for Canada. So with him not being in a rush and kind of saying to him, I'm not rushing like other countries. That's kind of saying something to him. And do we view people's views of the Americans have changed? Before a year in our time, was Canada not in a way raped by the U.S. and possibly other countries over the Admiral Arrow? We had a superior fighter jet, and we were bankrupt. It was taken away from us.
Okay, well, I don't want to get too off topic and go back to a program from decades ago.
That's what I mean. So we do have to be stronger if we're going to be doing it and believing. But he's got a tough deal to do to keep all sectors protected, from lumber to oil to auto.
But it seems as though you're willing to play the waiting game with Prime Minister Carney and be patient with Prime Minister. Okay, fair enough.
Something that later on we're going to regret.
Fair enough, sir.
Let him lay out all the cards. He's going to lay out the cards. We haven't laid out ours, and they are feeling it down there.
You would say we haven't laid out ours, but there's a counter opinion to that, and I thank you for your call today, Rob in Cambridge. Back down on the digital services tax, back down on counter tariffs, vowed to increase massively military spending, even open up our markets a little bit more to American dairy products. So there has been quite a few concessions from the Canadian side, but it hasn't seemed to advance to a big deal. Look, why don't we stop here? The next caller would only get about 30 seconds anyway, so we'll stop here and then pick it up. There's a full hour ahead of Talkback, and this is a very hot topic. It's the most important news story in the country right now, with the Prime Minister in Washington. As far as we know, they're still huddled in a room somewhere in the White House talking about, well, who knows? The goal from the Carney administration is to get some kind of tariff relief, at least for the steel and aluminum sectors. But we want to know your honest opinion of Donald Trump. Has your opinion changed of the Americans at all? And what about Prime Minister Carney and his lack of a big breakthrough on a deal with Trump? More of your calls for an entire hour coming up in hour number 2. Let's bring you the latest breaking news first, though. Coming up next on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. We've been talking about Trump, Carney, Canada, Americans today. What is your honest opinion of Donald Trump? What is your opinion of Americans? Has that changed? Has your view of Americans, generally speaking, changed in the last year or so? And so far, nothing to report from Prime Minister Carney on a breakthrough in his dealings with Donald Trump. How do you view that? Do you view that as a failure? on the part of the prime minister, or are you willing to give the prime minister a pass because of the person he is dealing with, Donald Trump? 1-833-668-2577. Lisa is in Calgary and is up next. Hi, Lisa.
Hi. Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine, Lisa. What's your opinion of Donald Trump, first of all?
I'm on the same page. I think Trump is the greatest right now, running in all politics. He stayed in the, I can't even think, with Europe. I think for Canada, for Carney, if he would only come home and say, you know what, we are going to do good business and join with the United States. These are our greatest allies. I love the Americans. I grew up going to New York, to Florida all my life. Originally from Montreal, we had Americans always coming. We have a lot of problems in Canada. People need opportunity. They need free enterprise. They need businesses to want to come and invest here. We are suffering economically. I don't have to tell you. We are a small population on this side of the border, and we got so many street people and drug problems. I'm so happy what Trump is doing with Venezuela. Our government has failed letting the drugs into our country, and that is a fact. They have turned their heads and looked the other way.
Okay.
Trump is on
How
the
do you
page.
view, if I could, how do you view Americans?
I love
You have
Americans. They're
you love Americans. Okay. Because it would seem, just from polls that have been released, Canadians, generally speaking, their views of the American people have kind of soured because they elected Donald Trump. But you're not one of them.
We need Radio 660 to run this show 24/7, and you're going to see the people calling in and telling the truth. And our government
Okay.
is that they pay the media. I don't know how much they give your broadcast, but they're paying CBC and these. We don't get the real news.
Yeah,
They're
well,
paid the narrative.
I can show you my bank account, ma'am. There's nothing coming from anybody to do this show except my boss. Those are the only people. Now, let me ask you, but on Prime Minister Carney and his inability to get a deal with Trump so far, how do you view that?
From the United Kingdom, visiting there myself, they're on the other side of what he did over there and what happened with Brexit. I think he had a big part in it. I'm not happy. I didn't vote for him. I'm not feeling it. I feel betrayed, to tell you the truth. I'm very frightened with Canada. Canada used to be a strong country. The United States was always our greatest ally. What is going on? These are who's going to defend us, God forbid, for Russia or China? And we've had a lot of problems, I don't have to tell you. I hope Radio 660 runs this broadcast, runs this show 24/7 again. Canadians would be calling in and telling you the truth because we can't get it on CBC or these other networks.
Okay. Well, it's a suggestion that's out there. My boss can, pick it up from there. I'll move along, though. Lisa, thank you for being as blunt as possible. I'm sure there are a lot of people who will not agree with Lisa's opinion. Maybe you're one of them. Maybe you totally agree with Lisa. Whatever the case might be, we like to hear from everyone around here. We welcome all opinions on Talkback. Just ask Wade in Sylvan Lake. He's up next.
Rob,
Hi,
how's
Wade.
your day going?
Very good, Wade. Thank you very much. What's your opinion of Donald Trump? Let's start there.
Well, my opinion of Donald Trump is it's too bad we didn't have a leader in this country that cared as much about this country as Donald Trump cares about his country.
Okay.
So I would have to say he's a warrior, and we need warriors.
Okay. All right.
This whole Canada-U.S. stuff that's happening falls squarely at the feet of Justin Trudeau and evil Mark Carney.
Okay, well, I wouldn't call the prime minister evil. I wouldn't go that far. Okay, you could disagree with him. It doesn't make him evil. I mean, yeah.
Okay, well, here let me just imagine if you would, somebody came to your house that you didn't know, took your children and put them in another room, and threatened to kill them, and then some more total strangers blocked the door so you could not go in, you could not visit them, feed them, or comfort them in any way, and then somebody else, total strangers, the Supreme Court, were waiting for them to make a decision as to when some total strangers are going to come into your place and let other total strangers kill your
I don't even know what
children.
you're talking about. I don't even know what you're talking about.
and
What are you
the
even talking about?
The ostriches.
Oh, the ostriches. Okay.
But then there's one person out there that could end all of that psychological terrorism that they're putting that family through in BC. He could end that with one phone call. So what the CFIA is doing to that family in BC is nothing less than pure evil.
Okay. All right. That's your opinion on that. I wanted to kind of focus on his dealings with Trump because that was the big thing in the election. And Canadians trusted him more to do deals with Donald Trump, and there's no deal yet. How do you view that?
Because evil Mark Carney is trying to destroy our relationship with our closest ally because he wants to fill the pockets of his WEF buddies and by giving it all to the EU and China. Well,
all right.
I mean,
okay, Wade. I've heard from you. I've heard from you, Wade. You've made your opinion very clear, and the listeners have heard it, and they could draw their own conclusions. But we will have to stop here. There you go. Two very passionate defenders of Donald Trump today. You can take the totally opposite view if you want. That's the beauty of doing call-in radio like this. Have your say on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Gathering your opinions today on Trump and Carney's lack of a deal with Trump, and if your opinion has changed at all of the American people. There's some polling that would suggest that for a majority of Canadians, it has. Ivar in Calgary. Ivar.
Hey, how are you?
Hi there. Very good, sir. Your opinion of Donald Trump, please.
I think Donald is great. I think he is a fighter, a businessman, maybe a politician second or third place, but he's done nothing but good things. Every criticism that's been thrown at him, he's thrown it back in their face, and he's done great things for the U.S. He outlawed DEI, got rid of the woke. I think he's headed in the right direction.
Okay. What about your opinion of the American people? You see, Canadians not buying American goods, not traveling to the United States, all of these sorts of things, right?
I don't think that weighs very much. I don't think it's a smart thing to do. Most of the American people voted for Donald Trump anyways. What difference does it make if you travel to the States, buy American goods? It's probably better than buying Chinese goods. And if it's not made in Canada, it's made in the U.S. right there. So maybe that's a wake-up call for our politicians to get, their boots on and say, yeah, let's make it here. Exactly what Donald Trump is doing.
Okay. So again, we don't know what the day is going to bring, but much has been made that, Prime Minister Carney was hired to deal with Donald Trump. That's why the Liberals won the election led by Prime Minister Carney. No big deal with Trump yet. A lot of people are willing to be patient with Prime Minister Carney. Are you one of them?
100%.
Sorry?
I don't think there will be a deal. I don't think there
You
will
don't
be
think
a deal.
there'll be a deal?
I think,
okay.
And if it is, it won't be good for Canada. I don't think Carney knows what he's doing. He's just by sheer luck and I think out of fear, the East voted him in because the West has no say in who gets into office. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you for your opinion. Thank you for your opinion, Ivar. There you go. Continuing with the praise for Donald Trump in this hour of the program. Paul is in Cambridge, Ontario. Hi, Paul.
Good afternoon. How you doing today?
Very good, Paul. What's your opinion of Donald Trump?
Okay. Back first time round, it was before I retired, and I spent a lot of time in the U.S. traveling for business. I met Democrats who said they've been Democrats all their life, but no way in heck they were going to vote for Hillary Clinton. But I also met Republicans that said the same thing. I've been a Republican all my life, but no way in heck am I voting for Donald Trump. So, Trump ended up getting in. I was actually in the U.S. on election day, and I sat in the bar that night watching the election results, and the majority of people seemed pretty happy that, at the bar at least, that Trump had won. Fast forward 4 years, they decided they had enough of Trump, and they elected a socialist, a Democrat, we'll call him a Democrat, and they went through a 4-year socialist experiment, and during that time, they saw the U.S. go downhill, and they realized their socialist experiment wasn't all it cracked up to be. So the next time round, Donald Trump is right back there. He steps in, and now we got, the U.S. has Trump as their president. Not a big fan of Trump. I find him kind of loud and obnoxious and whatnot. But he is doing what he believes is best for the USA all the way. And he's, passing laws. He's cleaning things up, as somebody else said. He's getting rid of a lot of this woke culture. He's looking at immigration. He's looking at drugs, everything else. He's trying to straighten things out. And that's a good thing. Maybe sometimes he goes a little to the extreme, like with the ICE raids and whatnot. But I think his heart's in the right place.
Okay. But look, like you have called before, and your history is in the auto sector, right? Were you not in the auto sector in Cambridge?
Yeah.
Right. He talked today about we don't want them making cars in Canada. We want the cars to be made in the United States. We don't want Americans to buy cars that are made in Canada. I mean, he's really being tough on our auto sector.
He wants everything made in the U.S. Unfortunately, there's certain things that they just don't make there or make enough of, like aluminum. They've got a very limited aluminum supply in the U.S. compared to other parts of the world, including Canada. But he's pushing. There's certain things that you can't just move on a moment's notice, and he's going to have to deal with that. And the automotive sector is one of those. He can say, "Oh, we're not going to let people build cars in the U.S.," but then Canadians are buying these cars as well. We're going to want to buy Canadian cars, so he's got to use some common sense and balance things out a bit.
Okay, all right. Thanks for your opinion. Be right back with more of your calls on your opinions of Donald Trump, your opinions of Americans, your opinion of Mark Carney's lack of a deal with Trump on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Right back to the phones on opinions of Trump and Americans and Carney. No deal with Trump just yet. Up first, we have Joe is in Halifax today. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Rob. How are you, man?
Very good, Joe. Thank you.
This call is being recorded.
Good show as always.
Thank you, Joe.
I wanted to, before I offer my opinion on Trump, just have a couple of things to say. And I think, it's kind of a no-brainer. You look at what he said recently about Tylenol causing autism. The government's suspended in the States right now. They've got their own fentanyl problems that, really is not at the top of the list, I guess, for importance. Stating that Portland's a war zone, and they've got the Minister of Defense is now the Minister of War.
If I could just correct you, he said Portland is burning to the ground, is what he said. Portland is burning to the ground. Yeah.
I've heard war zone too, but I mean, it's.
Oh, he was talking about Chicago. Then he was calling Chicago a war zone,
or Washington, or
yeah. Okay, but I get what you're saying.
You look at what happened to Jimmy Kimmel, which you talk about having your freedom of a voice, I guess. But the thing is that we've had years and years of partnership. I mean, we helped. I don't want to say helped, but. we were involved in, since World War II. There's Canadians that have been killed in Vietnam and Korea, Iraq, Afghanistan. None of those were our conflicts. And the thing is, a lot of that's kind of forgotten, right? That part of the relationship, and it's, what have you done for me lately, sort of thing. And basically, he's Trump's right. I mean, they've got all the leverage in the world, and we are their biggest trading partner. But when he can dictate things, that's basically what it is. What it seems to be right now is a dictatorship, right? It's
okay.
A lot of misinformation coming from these guys, right? And
okay.
That's basically what I have to say. I mean, I'm not going to.
Well, let me ask you, because you've talked about the historic ties between the two countries and when we've cooperated and things like this in our history together. Has your view of the American people changed at all for electing Donald Trump?
Not really. People
not
are people.
Really. Okay. People are people. Okay.
But I mean, you get good and bad, and we've got our own problems here too, right? That need to be addressed. So I can't say somebody's worse when we're not at the top of our game either. But yeah, I mean, there's so much history between the two countries on a good scale, right? And I think forgetting that creates a kind of a watered down future, which I don't think, considering we're next door neighbors, it needs to get better. And
let me ask you this:
can figure some
okay,
stuff out.
hopefully Carney can, but he hasn't yet had a deal with Donald Trump. In a minute or less, do you hold that against Mark Carney for not getting a deal?
No. It's I mean, I think Ian Lee, I was listening to him earlier on the show. He's right. They've got all the leverage right now, and going forward, I mean, there's not much Carney can dictate to Trump, right? It's a leverage thing, and he's got it. And I mean, just some of the discussion that comes out of the office there, right? I mean.
Right.
It's okay.
So you're willing to be patient. You're willing to be patient with the prime minister. Maybe give him a pass. I gotcha. We have to end our conversation there. However, thank you for your call today. More of your calls are just ahead on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So we've been talking today about Trump and Carney in Canada, with the backdrop being the Prime Minister in the Oval Office meeting the President of the United States, hoping to get some tariff relief for hard-hit Canadian businesses, maybe even a breakthrough on a trade deal. It's the biggest story in the country. It also came up during question period today, not unexpected, with Pierre Poilievre leading off the questioning, answering for the Liberals, because all the heavy hitters from the Carney cabinet, they're all in Washington, is the House leader for the government. He's a Liberal MP from the National Capital Region. His name is Steve McKinnon. Let's listen to this.
The Minister promised Canadians to, and I quote, negotiate a victory. He promised have a deal by July 21st, 2025. Still no deal, still no victory. And American tariffs have actually doubled. But today the Prime Minister made his biggest concession of all. He promised to push $1 trillion of investment out of Canada into the United States of America, which will drive down Canadian wages and Canadian jobs. Why is it when the Prime Minister goes for lunch at the White House, it's Canadian workers on the menu?
That's right. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and his colleagues are at the White House today, advancing Canada's interests, advancing Canada's trade interests, advancing our interests in foreign policy generally. And I know that the hopes of all Canadians accompany our Prime Minister to those meetings, where he will very, very clearly defend the rights of Canadian workers and of the Canadian economy. I sure hope the Leader of the Opposition is among those Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister casually said, and I quote, $500 billion in the last 5 years alone of Canadian investment has left to the U.S. And he said probably $1 trillion in the next 5 years if we get the agreement that we expect to get. In other words, he made a massive $1 trillion concession before the deal was even signed and without getting anything in return. $1 trillion of exit investment means closing mines and factories in Canada and opening them in the U.S. Why did the Prime Minister sell out our workers on his visit to Washington?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, we do not need Donald Trump's permission to open mines and roads and infrastructure in Canada. That's exactly what we're going to be doing, is building Canada with Canadian labor, Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum, and Canadian lumber. If he's referring to the Maple 8, the pension funds that Canadians are so proud of and invest in, who invest all over the world and take their profits back to Canada to pay Canadian pensions, well, I say bring that on too, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This government has already admitted that we have a problem with Canadian pension money leaving Canada to create jobs in other countries. They even created a Brookfield-run program to bring it back. But today, the Prime Minister promised the President that Canadian government policies would drive $1 trillion out of our economy into the American economy over the next 5 years. That is twice as bad as has happened in the last half-decade. This means lost jobs and lower wages for Canadians who already can't pay their bills. Again, why did the Prime Minister sell out Canadian workers in his visit to Washington?
I think that's good. That's good. So the soundbite that the leader of the opposition, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, is referencing is Prime Minister the Prime Minister at one point during this Oval Office meeting was mentioning how much Canada invests in the United States in terms of foreign investment, and he cited this figure $500 billion, $500 billion, and said there would be more to come in the trillions of dollars. Let's listen to that.
How come the UK and the European Union have succeeded to sign deals and bring the tariffs down, and Canada still hasn't been able to do the same?
Yeah, because they're not located right next to each other. It makes it, in many cases, it's much better and easier. But
yeah, and if I may, let's be clear about the relationship as it stands right now. We are the second largest trading partner of the United States. We do a lot of trade going across the border where we're cooperating, first thing. Secondly, we are the largest foreign investor in the United States. $500 billion in the last 5 years alone, probably $8 trillion in the next 5 years if we get the agreement that we expect to get. Thirdly, there are areas, as the President just said, where conflict, maybe not so much conflict, we compete. There are areas where we compete, and it's in those areas where we have to come to an agreement that works. But there are more areas where we are stronger together, and that's what we're focused on. And we're going to get the right deal for America, right deal, obviously, from my perspective, for Canada.
But let's get right back to our phone lines. Let's go to Imran, I believe, is up next in Calgary. Hi, Imran.
Hey, how you doing, Rob?
Very good, Imran. Thank you. What's your opinion of Donald Trump?
I think he's a smart president. Plus, also, don't forget that he's a shrewd businessman also. He's a very successful businessman. So he's doing these deals with all the countries in the world on that same guidelines and principles. I think we need to support our Prime Minister, fully, that when he goes in negotiations with Trump, he should feel very strong and positive and energetic. He should not be kind of intimidated or stressed out for the way Trump communicates with other foreign delegates. He should be firm. He's representing Canada, one of the greatest countries on the world.
Sure. But a lot will be made of his lack of a deal. There's been no breakthrough. Tariffs are higher now. People are losing their jobs because of this tariff war. He said he was going to be able to deal with Donald Trump, and there's been nothing yet. What would you say to that? Is it going to be an obvious criticism?
I think it's going to take some time because, you see, Trump is smart. He's trying to gather all the countries that he can really control and get the best deals for the U.S. Canada is a different type of country. You know, we are not just neighbors, but we have a very long-term relationship. So I think in the end, it will going to be, he cannot have very harsh kind of terms and conditions where he knows that Canadians and Americans are very close to each other, you know. I mean, like, it will going to impact people to people. So he will going to have some kind of relaxation in his tariff policy for Canadians, you know. I'm 100% positive about that. It's just a matter of time, and I think Carney should just stay relaxed and not stress out that if he doesn't get anything this time. Maybe there's always, because there is right next door to each other, they are communicating on a daily probably basis, you know. So that will going to happen, you know, and it will going to be mutually beneficial for both parties.
Okay, thank you for calling today and having your say on Talkback. On a big news story today, Carney visits Trump in the White House, meeting still going on as far as we know. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So we've been asking for your opinions of Donald Trump and of Americans, and Prime Minister Carney meeting over now at the White House. He's just left the White House, the Prime Minister. To our phones, Victor is up next. Hi, Victor. Thanks for calling Talkback today. You're on the air.
Well, thank you very much for taking my call. I'm a first-time caller, and I enjoy your show.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Victor. It's very kind of you to say.
And my opinion on Donald Trump, I got a few points I'd like to make, but my opinion is he's very good at what he does, and that's manipulating people, conning people. He didn't get to be where he was by fluke. He's very good at that part of his job. As a president, Ronald Reagan was really good. Clinton was really good. Them were presidents because they cared about the rest of the countries in the world and the people.
Okay, so I get what I get is you think Donald Trump is a con man? Do you think he's a con man?
He's very good at getting what he wants by conning countries and people out of all kinds of things. But as a president or running a country, I don't think he's very good at all.
Okay, fair enough. A lot of Canadians seem to have a different opinion of Americans these days. They don't like that 77 million Americans voted for Donald Trump. They're not buying Canadian goods. They're not traveling to the United States. Do you have a different view of the Americans now?
No, I like the American people, and I do feel sorry for them for what Trump is doing, because they're going to suffer, not now, but they're going to suffer in the next 5-10 years with all these tariffs and everything. It's going to hurt their economy. People are going to get laid off. Companies are going to close. I mean, this tariff is a game, and Trump is looking at it. Well, let's see what I can get away with before countries will really stand up to him.
Okay. What do you think about Prime Minister Carney not being able to get a deal with Donald Trump? Do you give him a pass?
Well, no, I'm not going to give him a pass, because what I think, my personal opinion is, the U.S. needs a lot of our product that we produce in this country. There's no doubt about it. They need all our hydro for the East Coast, from Ontario and Quebec. I think if you want to end this tariff game, Carney should stand back and say, look, anything imported into Canada, 100% tariffs on all goods. It's as simple as that. And I bet you could get Trump to back way, way down, because it will affect his economy. Like, they need our potash, our uranium, our fertilizer, our hydro.
But that's not what the Prime Minister has done. He's actually dropped counter tariffs on American imports into Canada.
Yeah, and Trump likes that, because then his companies don't have to pay no tariffs, but we still have to do it. That's not very fair.
Okay. I think Mark Carney's critics, I thank you for your call today, Victor, would say you've given up a lot with very little to show for it. You dropped the counter tariffs. Canada was supposed to have a digital services tax. I never agreed with that, but that's been dropped because of hardcore lobbying in both the United States and Canada from big tech. So they dropped that. There was a news report recently, American dairy producers could get more access to the Canadian market, despite the government and all the major political parties, for that matter, passing a bill that said supply management's untouchable. They made this promise to make big investments into border security, appoint a fentanyl czar, and, big time money is flowing into the military, and yet there's no deal. There's still no deal. Maybe there will be something to announce. You would think if there was something to announce, the prime minister would be in front of a microphone, and yet he's not. And the latest that we've been told is that it will be Dominic LeBlanc making some kind of announcement to news reporters about what happened today, what came of this meeting. If it was big, big news, you would think it'd be the prime minister himself and not his minister. Let's go to Henry is up next. Hi, Henry.
Hello?
Hi, Henry. Yeah, hi, Henry.
Hi.
Yeah, good to hear from you today. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, hi.
What's your opinion of Donald Trump? Let's start there.
Opinion. Well, people keep forgetting about his bone spur problems. I don't think he's a very good president myself.
Okay.
He's a crook, that's for sure, because I can tell he's lying.
Okay, Henry. I don't know, Henry. You're just not talking into the phone, and I can barely hear you. So,
sorry.
Get a better connection and call us back. We're going to stop here and be right back with more of your calls, some closing thoughts on the big news today here on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Sophia is up next in Kitchener. Hi, Sophia.
Yes, I am. Yes.
Hi there, Sophia. Yeah.
I have right now 2 grandchildren in university in America. They're very happy. Grandson lucky because he born in America. He got $60,000 scholarship for school. And America care about good student, help good student, help people so on do good. Yes, problem with this immigrants and mess in America. I need to correct. My family thinks so Trump doing very well, cleans this our immigrants. If you want to stay America, you be okay. You be nice and nice do. About my family, another in Washington, they highly educated. They right now probably lose job. They don't like Trump. And another family in New York, they love Trump. They have private business. They love Trump. So Trump do everything what business need to do. And they only, all my family, don't understand why Canada spin on Trump and bad things radio, TV tell about Trump. Another things about Carney. Carney and Trudeau always go to Europe. For them is more important European Union. So European Union is nobody right now.
Okay.
I am from Europe. I know. This is big mistake. We need to friend be with America, especially with Trump right now.
Okay. There's been no deal between Canada and the United States with Carney there so far. What do you think of that?
I think so. Not a big deal because
not a big deal.
Carney
Okay.
do very bad things with Trump. He from Europe in this European Union, so you do damage European country. We agree with Trump. So what Trump told, so this Europe green stupidity make a damage Europe. Yes, Europe is damaged. I am sorry because I born in Europe. I work in the 2 countries.
That's okay.
And I am very sorry, very upset about this. And upset, why Carney friend with Europe? I can't understand this. Not care
Well,
about
he keeps saying, our relationship with the United States will never be the same again. We have to find new opportunities to sell Canadian products abroad, and Europe is a big market. That's what he's saying, to diversify our trade.
My country, very good with Trump in Europe. They said they don't have problem. I don't understand why Carney have problem, because he deliberately do this problem with Trump. That is opinion my family.
Okay.
My children highly educated.
That's fine. And other people will have different opinions. They will say we didn't start a fight with the Americans. It was Trump who started the fight with us. It was Trump who imposed tariffs on Canada. It was Trump who started talking about wanting to make Canada the 51st state. He even joked about that today.
Yes, this is joke Trump told. That's okay. I'm laughing.
It's okay.
A Trudeau from Trump.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your call. I mean, when it comes to opinions about Donald Trump, at least during Talkback today, I mean, they were all over the place. I mean, some people think he's just the greatest thing and he's doing great things for the United States, and other people clearly cannot stand the sight of the man, and I think they wish he was in prison. And not much in between. We'll be back tomorrow with a brand new topic and more of your calls. It's been a very busy news day today. Bring you right up to date on the latest breaking news coming up next here on News Radio.